Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we're looking again at 6.ns.b3, fluently add, subtract, multiply, and divide multi-digit decimals using the standard algorithm for each operation. So our previous lesson was on multiplying decimals. Today we're going to continue with multiplying decimals, but using word problems. Here we have a recap of our steps for multiplying those decimals, as well as our cube strategy, which we like to use whenever we're working with word problems. Our first question states, Dejanay buys fancy string at a cost of $1.36 per yard. She uses 0.5 yard of that string to make 2 bracelets for her friends. How much did the string used to make the bracelets cost? So here we have that her total cost was $1.36 per yard. Now, of that, she's using 0.5, which is also a half, right? So 0.5 yards was used. She made 2 bracelets. That number is insignificant as it relates to solving our problem because we're trying to find out how much did the string that she used cost. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take our total amount of $1.36 and we're going to multiply that by the amount that was used, which is 0.5. Now, some of you may have been saying, why didn't we divide? We could have used division here, but if we divided, we wouldn't divide by 0.5. We would need to say to ourselves, okay, if she used half of it, right, then she's splitting it into 2 pieces. So we would divide 1.36 by 2 if we're going to use division in this scenario. But since we're using multiplication, we can use the concept of 0.5 representing half of the string that was used. So let's go ahead and set up our multiplication problem. So we know that we're going to first work with the numbers without the decimal point. So 136 times 5. 5 times 6 is 30. 5 times 3 is 15 plus 3 is 18. 5 times 1 is 5 plus 1 is 6. Now we're going to go back to our original numbers, $1.36 and 0.5, and count the number of decimal places. So we have 1, 2, 3. So we're going to go ahead and move 1, 2, 3 places. So the total cost for the 2 bracelets that she made is 68 cents. Now we haven't talked about division yet, but let's go ahead and see what that would look like if we had used division on this problem. So remember I said that if we use division, we wouldn't divide by 0.5, we would need to divide by 2 because 0.5 is half, right? That's representing a half. So 1.36 divided by 2. When we get to our division unit, then you'll understand a little bit more clearly about how we place our decimals and all of that. So this decimal is just going to go right on top of the decimal that's in our dividend. It's going to go right on top in our quotient. So 2 does not go into 1, so that's 0. 2 does go into 13 6 times, which is 12. Bring down the 6, and then 2 into 16 is 8. So as you notice, the answers would match. So again, the cost for the 2 bracelets would be 68 cents. Ricky's car gets 26.45 miles per gallon on the highway. If his fuel tank holds 11.25 gallons, then how far can he travel on 1 full tank of gas? Okay, so the total distance that he can travel on 1 gallon of gas is 26.45 miles. Okay, if his fuel tank holds 11.25, so to fill up his tank, he can get 11.25 gallons in there. So what we would need to do is to take into consideration that 26.45 miles is for 1 gallon and 11.25 is a total amount of gallons that his car can hold. How far can he travel? So we're going to set this up 2 ways. We're going to set this up using proportions, which will lead us to multiplication. So here we have 26.45 miles to 1 gallon of gas. Okay, and I want to know how many miles. So this is my unknown. I can also use a variable. We talked about variables early out to represent that unknown for 11.25 5 gallons. Here we can use what we call the butterfly method. And what that does is it tells me that I multiply my denominator with my numerator from the opposite fraction, and the same here. Okay, so if you notice, this takes us right back to multiplying those two numbers. Now, whenever you're setting up a proportion in this manner, you want to make sure that your units are consistent. So if I have miles on top here, then I need to have miles on top here, gallons on the bottom, gallons in the denominator as well. So the denominators, the units must match, and the numerators, the units must match. So let's go ahead and use the variable x to represent our unknown, and then we're going to multiply 26.45 times 11.25. We'll get more into solving using ratios and proportions when we get into that unit, but this is just to show you that you can set up equivalent ratios to help you figure out what the value is going to be for your unknown number. And as you see, it takes us right back to multiplying. So now let's go ahead and multiply these two numbers. First, we're going to rewrite them without the decimal point, and then we'll work our way from there. All right, so I have 2,645, and then I have 1,125. So here we have two pretty large numbers. So let's go ahead and take our time working through them. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 4 is 20 plus 2 is 22. 5 times 6 is 30 plus 2 is 32. 5 times 2 is 10 plus 3 is 13. Now let's put in our placeholder, and I'm going to just change colors to help us keep track. 2 times 5 is 10, carry the 1. 2 times 4 is 8 plus 1 is 9. 2 times 6 is 12. 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1 is 5. Okay, now we're going to put two placeholders. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 6 is 6. 1 times 2 is 2. Now we're going to have three placeholders. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 6 is 6. And 1 times 2 is 2. And now we add. 5 plus zeros will stay 5. 2 plus zeros would be 2. 2 plus 9 is 11. 11 plus 5 is 16. 3 plus 2 is 5. 5 plus 4 is 9. 9 plus 5 is 14, plus 1 is 15. 1 plus 5 is 6. 6 plus 6 is 12. 12 plus 4 is 16. 16 plus 1 is 17. 2 plus 6 is 8. 8 plus 1 is 9. And then we bring down our 2. Now let's go ahead and take account for our number of decimal places. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4 decimal places. Let's go ahead and move that. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So the total amount of miles that can be traveled on 11.25 gallons of gas is 297.5625 miles. And if I wanted to round this to the nearest hundredth, then I would say Ricky can travel 297.56 miles. Alan earns $11.75 per hour working at his dad's restaurant. If he worked 21 hours and 30 minutes this month, how much did he earn? Here we have that he's earning $11.75, and that's per hour. And we know the idea of per represents 1 hour. Okay, let's just circle that better. And we're saying that he worked 21 hours and 30 minutes. Now we can convert this 30 minutes into a fraction. Now you know there are 60 minutes in an hour. So if I take into consideration 30 minutes, I can say that Alan worked 21.5 hours, which can also be written as 21.5 hours. Just to recap that, there are 60 minutes in 1 hour. So if he worked 30 minutes, that means he worked half an hour. Half an hour can be represented using a fraction here or decimal of 0.5. So now we're going to go ahead and work with our decimals. So Alan worked $11.75 per hour, and we want to know how much he would have earned in 21.5 hours. So we need to multiply those two, right? Repeated addition is going to lead you to multiplication. So the first hour he worked 11.75, the second hour he worked another 11.75, the third, fourth, all the way up to 21.5 hours. Now let's go ahead and rewrite these numbers without the decimal and start our multiplication. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 7 is 35 plus 2 is 37. 5 times 1 is 5 plus 3 is 8. 5 times 1 is 5. I'm going to change my color just to help keep track. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 7 is 7. 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 1 is 1. Now we're going to put two placeholders. 2 times 5 is 10. 2 times 7 is 14 plus 1 is 15. 2 times 1 is 2 plus 1 is 3. And then 2 times 1 is 2. Let's go ahead and add these numbers. So 5 plus zeros will be 5. 7 plus 5 is 12. 8 plus 7 is 15 plus 1 is 16. 5 plus 1 is 6. 6 plus 5 is 11. Plus 1 is 12. 1 plus 3 is 4. Plus 1 is 5. And then we bring down the 2. Now let's count the number of decimal places we have. So we have 1, 2, 3. So we're going to move that many places. 1, 2, 3. So here we have that our number is 252.625. Now we're talking about money because we said how much did he earn? So whenever you're talking about money, money must be rounded to 2 decimal places, right? That's 100. So when we talk about cents, cents is referring to out of 100. So to round our number, okay, so we're going to round to the hundredths position. So we need to look at the number next to it, to the right position. If that number is 5 or greater, we're going to add one more and round up. If that number is less than 5, then we'll leave it the same. So here we see that it's 5, so we're going to add one more to the number 2 to make it 3. So Alan would have earned $252.63. The cost of Mrs. Jackson's large storage unit is $185.47 per month. If Mrs. Jackson pays in advance for 3 years of storage, how much will she pay in all? And then there's a little hint that's given to us here where it says how many months are in 3 years. So because the cost that Miss Jackson is paying is monthly, we can't just multiply it by the 3 representing the years. We have to take into consideration how many months will be in each of those years. So we know that a year, so 1 year is equal to 12 months. Therefore, 3 years will be equal to 36 months. How do we get that? Multiplication, repeated addition, either of those would work. So 12 for the first year plus another 12 for the second year would be 24, plus another 12 for the third year would be 36, or 3 times 12 is 36. So now to find out how much Miss Jackson will pay in all for those 3 years, we need to multiply her monthly cost of $185.47 times 36. Now we're going to set this up without the decimal. So 18547 times 36. And let's go ahead and work through those numbers. 6 times 7 is 42. 6 times 4 is 24 plus 4 is 28. 6 times 5 is 30 plus 2 is 32. 6 times 8 is 48 plus 3 is 51. 6 times 1 is 6 plus 5 is 11. I'm going to go ahead and drop in our placeholder. 3 times 7 is 21. 3 times 4 is 12 plus 2 is 14. 3 times 5 is 15 plus 1 is 16. 3 times 8 is 24 plus 1 is 25. 3 times 1 is 3 plus 2 is 5. Now we'll go ahead and add. 2 plus 0 is 2, 8 plus 1 is 9, 2 plus 4 is 6, 1 plus 6 is 7, 1 plus 5 is 6, and 1 plus 5 is 6. Now we'll go ahead and count the number of decimal places we have in our original number. So there's 1, 2. Let's use a different color. 1, 2 in the original number. So we're going to move that many places in our answer. So here we see that our answer is $6,676.92. So after 3 years, Miss Jackson would have paid $6,676.92 for her large storage unit. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful day.